please respond with a here when I call out their name. Commissioner Doan. Here. Commissioner Duggan.
Here.
Commissioner Lysick.
Here.
Commissioner Sanders.
Here.
Now to mix things up a little bit, I would like to entertain a motion to amend tonight's agenda at ORS 1926602F to our executive session.
So moved.
I have.
This is Jim Doan, second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Begin with reports by the Chief Executive Officer and management staff.
Well, good evening, President Fisher and Commissioners. I want to start off just reminding you that we have reached out to Dr. Teodoro to do a presentation here at the district to strengthen our regional reputation as well as build knowledge within our own team. Originally, we had talked about doing this on the Tuesday, May 19th, and then we learned that was an election day here in Oregon, thought better about that. We worked with Dr. Teodoro and have settled on May the 12th. I want to verify with the board that that date is acceptable. If we need to move the date, it would probably need to be in the fall. So seeing no objections, we'll go with that date. There are two separate topics that we're talking about. The first one is aimed at staff and the staff of our partnership agencies. The title will be Toward a More Perfect Drinking Water, the Medicine Declaration and the Future of the Safe Drinking Water Act. In fact, got an email from Manny today that his new book on the subject is out. So this is based on a lot of research that he's done. And he's a bit of an iconoclast on this, where he's challenging really the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is I think about 52 years old now. I think we celebrated its 50th anniversary 2 years ago. And he's looking at the regulatory framework and whether or not that works as we've moved forward. So I'm very interested in hearing what he has to say about that. And I think other staff from our regional partners will find it interesting as well. The second one is Trust at the Tap, Drinking Water and Democracy. And this is aimed at the elected officials from around the region. And this talks a lot from the research he did with Profits of Distrust that had to do with bottled water and how our success or failures as local service providers affect people's trust in local government in its entirety. So again, the idea of having Manny come is to make us think a little bit differently about topics that are of interest to us and our partners, to add to the conversation and to build our regional reputation. So I'm looking forward to Manny coming back and talking to us. I think you know that we've reached substantial completion on the 189th Avenue pump station. The project actually has been substantial completion in operations since August of 2025. We used an alternative project delivery on this particular project. It's been very successful. Regardless, though, we will bring back to you as the local contract review board a briefing on that. We're required to prepare a report and submit to you, but we'll prepare that report, submit it to you in person. So looking forward to that. We will have a future public open house this spring for the neighbors that were affected by the construction. And this also may be a potential opportunity to recognize the $3 million state grant we got to support that project. So we're looking for an opportunity to have other folks, maybe in the Oregon legislature, even from the executive branch, the state executive branch, to come and see what work we've done with the grant that we received. You also probably saw in the Thursday memo that we conducted our emergency drinking water preparedness exercise here at the district. This was a district-wide exercise based on our newly adopted emergency response plan, using the National Incident Management System / Incident Command System framework. So this is a FEMA prescribed methodology. It's used all over the country to deal with various emergencies. To be eligible for FEMA reimbursement following that protocol is obviously very important. So we practice that protocol, and that's the basis for our emergency response plan. The exercise, this was actually a pretty big deal for us. We actually had support from a contractor who helped us run the exercise so we could be immersed in the learning and have other folks kind of injecting the reality. We also got great support from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. They do a lot of incident response. That's their business. And we have a staff member there that has been incredibly helpful for us developing our skills in this area where we respond less frequently. And also Washington County Emergency Management was very helpful in that exercise. The scenario that we had was based on unauthorized access and manipulation of the district's SCADA data. So it was revealed to people through what they call scenario injections over time to test our decision-making coordination and how our incident command worked. So it's a bit of a trumped up exercise, obviously. They know where it's going over time, but the people in the training don't. And in this case, we had actually Tim Boylan was our incident commander and got trial by fire and had a great opportunity to learn more about ICS and how that works. We did a debrief after the exercise to identify really the after action, identify areas where we had strengths, but also opportunities to improve. And we'll continue these exercises regularly. In fact, in May, we plan to do a similar exercise for the Willamette Water Supply System using the emergency response plan that we prepared for that. So this will be with our partners. Again, as the managing agency, though, we need to exercise these capabilities and be prepared to respond to an emergency. Just a quick update. You probably know that the state legislature is in session, and we had our water day at the Capitol. I think Commissioner Fisher, you may have actually been there and could probably give this report as well. But we did participate in that. And actually, Joel Carey had an opportunity to do a presentation on the Willamette Intake Facility Commission's source water protection plan. And this is important for us as we want to continue to raise our profile as technical experts around the state and provide more opportunity to have influence on these matters in the legislature. So congratulations to Joel and the team for pulling that together. And I'll conclude by the director's report tonight. Justin Carlton will be presenting some important information on our PERS system.
Good evening, President Fisher and Commissioners. Tonight's Director's Report, we thought we'd take the opportunity to provide an update on the public employee retirement system. It's been a while since we've discussed this as a body, and so it's sort of omnipresent in the media locally here, and so we thought we'd take the opportunity to give you an update on where things lie with the PERS system, as well as looking at its impacts to TVWD, and specifically how it relates to our current and projected rates and the status of our current side accounts. So first off, let's take a look at kind of the PERS system as a whole. So the 4 columns we have here, we're going to be focusing on the last 2. So the very last one is the status of the system as of December 31st, 2023. And then the one to the left here is the status of 2024. These numbers were just recently updated, but I used the actuarial report, the most recent one that's been published as of December 31st, 2024. So all the data is as of that date. So out of the roughly 420,000 total members in PERS, a little less than half of that are current active members. So our active members are people who are still employed in the system. Their employers are making contributions on their behalf, and they're contributing to their individual account plans. And then the remainder are made up of our inactive members, so people who are eligible for PERS at retirement but are no longer contributing members of the system. And then finally, the retired members or beneficiaries who are actually receiving benefits from the system. And so about 168,500 current retirees in the system. And you can see how they're broken apart between our tier 1, tier 2, and OPSERP, or sometimes referred to colloquially as tier 3. And then you can see a comparison of their average ages as well as their average monthly benefits. So out of that roughly 168,500 folks, the average age is just under 74 years old, and the average monthly benefit is just under $3,000. So those are just some high-level stats for where the system is at currently. So PERS basically is doing an algebra problem, and that what they're trying to solve for in the basic equation here is that C, contributions. So they take the total benefits and they have to figure out what it's going to take to actually, and those are determined by the legislature. So there was obviously a lot of reforms that took place in the 2000s that developed things like Tier 2 and the OPSERP plan, and then there's been some additional refinements over time. So the total benefits equals what the current contributions are, and then plus the current earnings. So the only lever that the PERS folks have to maneuver is this contribution, C. Earnings are obviously dictated by market performance. We don't have a lot of control over that. There's really smart people working really hard to do the best they can in terms of driving earnings out of the market, but they're limited by what the market can deliver on those things. And we'll talk a little bit more about how C affects us as an employer. Looking at PERS from a funding status, and so once again, we'll kind of focus on these last columns here, which is the pension system's total. So they break it up into different pools. TVWD is a member of what's called the state local government resource, or excuse me, the state local government rate pool. And so looking at the total system, we've got 100, and these numbers are expressed in millions, so 108 billion. 108 billion of total actuarially accrued liability. So that's the total amount of benefits that are owed for our retirees over the present value calculation. And then beneath that, our actuarial value of assets, the amount of assets to pay off those liabilities, 79.5 million. So a funding status of 73.1%. To that, we add some side accounts that employers have contributed to help offset those future liabilities. And so now we're down to a funding status of 77.2%. And you can see how that compares to the prior year below here. So that 22.8% difference is what's commonly referred to as the unfunded actuarial liability, which equates to $24.8 billion. So looking at this from obligations and resources perspective, this dotted line here, so that 108 billion in total obligations, and then the remaining amount here is what's called the present value of our future normal costs. So the concept here is that this is kind of a pay-go system. And so you can see these two areas equal each other. So the future obligations for our current members that we're paying on a normal cost basis is equal to the resources. And then so below that, we have our actuarial liability and then the resources to account for that. This box here represents the unfunded actuarial liability. So that is the about $25 billion hole that we're trying to solve for in that C equation over the long term. This provides a breakout of the representative elements of that unfunded actuarial liability. So we can see for our active Tier 1 employees, so Tier 1 employees who are still working in the system represents about 5% of that number. Going down the list, our active Tier 2, 11%. OPSERP 15%, and then our inactive for all tiers is 5%. Our OPSERP retirees is 2%, and then our Tier 1, Tier 2 retirees represents 62% of that unfunded actuarial liability. So how does this equate to the rates that TVWD pays? So these are our current PERS rates, and they're broken into tier 1, tier 2 rates, and then our OPSERP rates. And just kind of going down the line, so you have that normal cost rate that I talked about. So that's the pay-go element, which is just to pay for the people who aren't retired yet on a normal cost basis. It's 14.39% of payroll. And then we have our tier 1, tier 2 unfunded actuary liability rate. So to pay for that 25 billion gap that we're trying to catch up to, it's another 12.5%. Below that is the Multnomah County, or excuse me, the Multnomah Rural Fire District 10 UAL rate. So Multnomah Fire District 10 was an organization that was started, I think, in the 30s. It's since been primarily annexed away by Portland, Gresham, some other neighboring agencies. And so it ceased to have employees, but it had a pretty substantial unfunded liability in terms of its pensions. So those costs were distributed across all the other members in the system based on a proportional scale. So the majority of it was picked up by Portland Fire, Gresham, folks who basically absorbed those staff, but the additional remaining amount was allocated to all other members. That's being amortized over a 25-year period. So that was enacted in 2003. So we will see that, even though it's a small amount, it will come off our rate calculation in 2028. And then below is the 2.69%. So that's the UAL for those OPSERP employees that have retired. And then next up, we have our transition liability. So this is actually a credit to us. So this is a number that's calculated based on the amount of resources TVWD brought into the system at the time that it joined PERS. So it's receiving a credit against that. And then I want to hover on our 6.9% side account relief. So the district does have two side accounts. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in a little bit. But what we did was, at the advice of was our board, and in particular Commissioner Doan, we were challenged with looking at ways that we could offset our personnel costs, especially during the stretch of significant infrastructure investments related to the Willamette. So in 2019, we did elect to make an investment in a side account. We took advantage of an incentive program offered by the legislature at that time. So we're able to get about another extra $800,000 contributed to our $10 million investment. And so we're able to offset our current PERS rate at about 6.9%. Whereas if that money were invested in our normal portfolio, we'd see earnings, closer to the 4% range. So a worthwhile investment there in the long term. And then finally, we have our member redirect offset. So this was actually part of Senate Bill 1049 that was enacted, I think, in 2019, I think, is when it was voted in 2020 into effect. So this was part of the decision to offset some of the member rates using each individual's IAP fund. So a portion of what's called the individual account planner, the IAP, that employees pay, district employees pay, some employers pick it up, the district does not, gets actually redirected to help offset the costs depending on market performance. And so there's a slight credit there associated with that. So we get our net pension costs of 19.6% for our tier 1, tier 2 folks. Down below, there is some retiree healthcare information on the tier 1, tier 2 folks. You can see that it does not exist for OPSERP. So that's a healthcare pool that exists for tier 1, tier 2 folks. It's a fully funded account. So that's why you see a positive and a negative that offset to zero. So our total PERS related costs for our tier 1, tier 2 folks, just a little below 19.2% and 17% for our OPSERP folks. But I do want to emphasize that normal cost, so that sort of pay-go to maintain the system in its current status, excluding the liability for retirees, is about 14.4 and 10.47. Looking forward to what our projected rates are. So these are not finalized yet. The PERS system is doing its actuarial calculation for 2025. They've released what they call advisory rates. But you can see kind of the net effect as our side account starts to reduce in value. It's amortized over time. We're seeing some upward pressure on PERS rates for tier 1 and tier 2, specifically in the reduction of that side account is what's the primary driver there. So recall our basic equation. We're trying to solve for C. while C is determined by the PERS board, and they let us know what those rates are, there are some levers that we have to control that. The first is what we call our, our combined payroll valuation. So you recall that TVWD did engage in a class comp study that we completed in this last year, and we've gone from a formula driven incentive program to more of a traditional step and grade situation. The formula was heavily reliant on the CPI number, and that acted as a very volatile effect in terms of our overall payroll calculations. And so now that we're on a more traditional step and grade system, that's a much more stable situation. And so I do anticipate that we'll see some benefit from that normalization on our combined valuation payroll. It's not going to be a significant amount, but it will help stabilize that fluctuation over time. And then the second thing would be the side accounts. So as I mentioned, TVWD does have a couple side accounts. There's a significant number of side accounts throughout the state that are going to be fully amortized in 2027. We're no exception. You can see the value as of December 31st, 2024. So PERS has said that employers have two options to deal with any remaining funds in those side accounts that will be amortized in that year. For one option, if you have over $500,000 of value, you can choose to reestablish an additional side account. That doesn't apply to us. So whatever's remaining in that investment will receive as a PERS credit in calendar year 2028. And then our second side account, which doesn't amortize until 2037. So that was that $10 million totaling out to 10.8 million with the contributions from the legislature. So that won't mature until 2037. But you saw the significant impact from these investments. And we talked a little bit about the differential between investing in the long term to mitigate our payroll costs versus having the cash on hand to invest in capital or continue to invest in our portfolio. So this is something that we're constantly looking at. At this point, I would not advise us to make any sort of side account investment given where we're at with the Willamette program. So let's complete our work there. Let's look to the next biennial cycle, and we have a better sense of the ongoing operating costs impacts to the district. But this is something that we will be evaluating, and when it is appropriate and we have a proposal, we will bring that to the board for consideration. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So that concludes the report of the Chief Executive Officer and Management Staff.
We'll now move to Commissioner Communications and reports of meetings attended. I will go left to right today. So Commissioner Duggan.
Okay, for this month's report, on the 28th of January, I attended the Metro Impact meeting where they continued to talk about their future vision and housing in the metro area. On the Groundhog's Day, February 2nd, I had a meeting with Paul Matthews, which is our regular monthly check-in. On the 3rd, we had our board work session. On the 4th, the Regional Water Providers Consortium Board meeting was held, where we approved the budget and set the dues for the coming year. Nothing huge to report there. Dues went down a little. Budget went up a little, or maybe I got that background, but not much. And yeah, dues went down, and budget went up because of a carryover. That's what it was. On the 5th of February, we had the Willamette Water Supply System Board meeting where we elected officers. We approved local contract review board rules and received other updates. From the 6th to the 8th, I attended the SDAO conference. On the 9th, I attended the Washington County Public Affairs Forum where Elizabeth Coffey from the City of Beaverton talked about the City of Beaverton's budget status and their concerns in the coming year. On the 10th, I attended the Washington County CPO #1 meeting where they talked about annexation of perhaps the Cedar Mill area into Beaverton and what it would take to have that occur. And then tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you. Way back on January 26th, we had the WIF meeting where we also did the rotating members, leadership group. And then, I don't know, I thought it was exciting, and Joel and Dave would probably agree. We're starting to talk about some interesting stuff. We're starting to talk about operational stuff. And that's actually really exciting. Although the comment was, this is really boring, but it's really not boring because we're getting to that point where we have to talk about operational stuff. So I came away from it feeling really excited because we were like, oh my gosh. The work session, board agenda planning meeting, met with Paul one-on-one. On the 10th, we had the WRWC meeting where again, we did the rotating of the leadership of the meeting, and Joel gave a presentation. I don't see Joel here today, but Joel gave a presentation on the update of the legislative activities, and then today's meeting.
So I, on the 26th of January, attended a telephone town hall hosted by one of TVWD's members of Congress, Andrea Salinas, where we heard updates about what's going on in DC land. On the 27th, CEO Paul Matthews and I attended the West Side Economic Alliance Legislative Forum, where I was, a little disappointed, not one legislator mentioned water as one of their important things. We had about a dozen legislators there, and it's we're gonna miss Rep. Helm when he retires out of the legislature. On the 28th of January, I met with Tualatin City Councilor Bridget Brooks to hear updates about what's going on in Tualatin. On the 3rd of February, I attended the work session. On the 4th, I attended a Zoom on affordable housing and affordable communities to hear about national trends. On the 5th, I attended our agenda planning meeting. On Monday this week, I was down at the state capitol and was there for non-TVWD reasons, but ended up just by chance getting to be seated on the floor with my state senator. And she introduced me as a Tualatin Valley Water Commissioner. So we got a little shout out on the floor of the state Senate. So that was pretty fun. And then on the 17th, I had our check-in with the CEO, and then tonight's meeting. Commissioner Lysak.
On January 28th, I had my check-in with CEO Matthews, the work session on the 3rd, the SDAO conference on the 6th and 7th, another check-in with CEO Matthews on February 12th, and then tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Doan.
Well, tonight's meeting which is regular meeting, and then the work session on the 3rd. And so anyway, that's it.
Okay. And now we'll briefly topics to be raised by commissioners.
President Fisher, as everyone probably knows, I am suffering from Parkinson's disease, and it is accelerating. And as a result, I can no longer perform the functions of a commissioner here, and I will resign by the end of the month. And that'll give you guys 17 or 18 months to fulfill my position. But my mind's a jumble. I can't put two coherent thoughts together. And so it's time to get out of here. And thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doan. We are going to miss you when this takes place, but you won't be rid of us quite yet. So we've got some things in the works for you. Uh, Any other communications to be raised by commissioners? Okay. To public comment. Sam, is there anyone online for public comment?
Not seeing any this evening.
Okay. It's over. Then we will move straight to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are to be considered routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items requested to be removed for the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require discussion.
This is Todd Sanders. I move to accept the consent agenda as offered.
It's Commissioner Duggan, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move into our business agenda, the surplus property policy with Justin Carlton.
Thank you again, President Fisher and Commissioners. So tonight's presentation will look very similar to what we covered at the work session on the 3rd. So just a reminder that the district's rules for declaring and surplusing property were rescinded as a result of the adoption of Resolution 2425, which established the new local contract review board rules. Prior to that, the surplus property rules were embedded in the LCRB rules. And at the advice of council, we took that out and bringing it forward as a regular board policy. Staff did propose at the work session that the board adopt a simpler surplus rule and incorporate the operational details in the district's administrative policies, which is consistent with what we've seen with some neighboring agencies as well, and also aligns with our strategic initiatives for updating the board policies for the 25-27 biennium. The key elements that were part of the policy that was in your board packet for review included that the board will maintain responsibility for surplusing real property, that the CEO may declare personal property surplus, and that the CEO may amend the administrative rules for surplusing personal property, that the disposition of capital assets must comply with any accounting rules of the district, and that they should disposition from property should be aligned with any special revenues that were procured with. So if there are any grants or covenants associated with debt proceeds, we need to make sure that those things are accounted for properly. Staff does recommend that the board adopt resolution 7-26, a resolution adopting the surplus property policy for the Tualatin Valley Water District. And I would be happy to take any questions from the board at this time.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
This is,
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 726. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Now we'll have a presentation on TVWD data privacy with Paul Matthews.
Well, good evening again, President Fisher and Commissioners. Tonight, we're going to talk about TVWD's data privacy, and we're asking the board to reaffirm or to affirm our policies in that regard. This comes from the work session that we had last on February 3rd, where we talked about the impact that some of the federal immigration actions are having on our customers. And from that, we did look into this and some of the customer concerns we're trying to alleviate with this action. So as you know, Washington County has seen or experienced more significant federal immigration enforcement recently. And in fact, in December, Commissioner Fisher and I attended meeting that was convened by the Mayor of Beaverton, Mayor Beatty, regarding the city's response to federal immigration enforcement. And that prompted us to do some research to prepare for that meeting. And this action or proposed action is a direct consequence of those conversations. So our current situation that we have, when we went through and examined where we stood, we're in a good position. We've aligned our business processes to reflect our core values of respect, integrity, service, equity, and safety. So that work is done. Our business model is largely insulated from changes in federal immigration policy. We deliver water to customers and they deliver payment to us. And the issues around immigration policy don't affect us directly in that regard. Eligibility for our customer assistance program and the customer emergency assistance program is determined by Community Action of Washington County, which is a trusted third party. We did that very deliberately when we were setting up those programs. In fact, this was before the current increase in federal immigration enforcement, with the idea that we want to make sure customers were comfortable seeking that assistance if they qualify for the assistance. We also offer bilingual speakers within the customer service department. In fact, other areas of the district, we have an incentive to ensure that we have people who can speak both English and Spanish. We will not share customer data with other third parties absent a legal requirement. By legal requirement, that would be a judicial order, not administrative order. But that would be a judicial subpoena or a judicial warrant. That was very clear from the board that that was the direction we were to take. Also, we will request that Clean Water Services in the city of Beaverton adhere to the same privacy standards that we have. They do, in fact, that is their standard. But we have a joint billing system with those entities. And so the information that we collect on our customers is available to them as well. We've reviewed our policies and are in the process of training our staff to ensure that customer privacy is honored. But still remains concerns that customers may have. And the fact is we are a local government, and as such, we need to earn the trust of the citizens that we serve. Some of our most vulnerable customers may lack an understanding of our policies that we have at TVWC, our practices, and our commitment to data privacy. Our strategy of using a trusted third party, Community Action, it was wise. It was the best thing that we could do, but potentially it's still insufficient to earn trust. And tonight's board action of clarifying our policies, it may help earn trust, but let's be honest, it's not necessarily going to do it entirely, but it is something that we feel can be helpful to reassure our customers that we will maintain the privacy of their data. So the actions that we've taken, we have conducted a legal review of the requirements. I talked about that at the work session, including some things I didn't realize. Oregon has been a sanctuary state since 1984. It was the first sanctuary state in the country. I had no idea that. Learned that as part of this research project. We have developed protocols for responding to any federal inquiries that we may have, and we talked about that at the work session. We've created cheat sheets for our staff, both at the front office as well as our field staff, if they are approached by a federal authority on how to respond. And then we prepared this action for the board's consideration tonight, the resolution that was provided in your board packet. So there are just a few highlights to the proposed resolution that I wanted to bring forward. First, why does this matter? And it goes back to the idea of public trust. We need public trust to deliver what is really an essential service, water, to our customers. And they are experiencing concerns that doing business with a local government may put their personal data at risk and accessible by other public agencies, including federal authorities. So we want to make that very clear. Our commitment, collecting using only limited customer data information required for operations, billing and legal compliance. We are not interested in collecting data that we don't need for those purposes. And we have no incentive to do so, and we won't do that. We're not using or disclosing customer data for purposes unrelated to utility services, except under the circumstances where it's consistent with Oregon law. So we do have to comply with the Oregon Public Records requirements. Obviously, we will do that. And as I mentioned, judicial orders, which would be either a judicial subpoena or uh, a warrant. And if we have questions about what those are, we have Mr. Balfour here who can help us better understand that. We will pursue, as part of this resolution, it directs me in particular to work with our joint billing partners, as Clean Water Services and City of Beaverton, and require that they follow these same protocols. Again, we share that common billing system. The data are there for our joint customers, and we want to make sure that that data handling standards are consistent between the three agencies. I have no doubt they are. They share the same values in this regard that we do. So this is not a particularly difficult ask, but we want to make that formal so that our customers know that we are going that step as well to protect their privacy. It does provide specific direction to staff. It communicates the privacy commitment clearly from the board to the customers and the public, and establishes administrative policies, gives me the responsibility to do that, and procedures to protect our customer data. So it's a very clear resolution in that regard. So with that, our recommendation is that the board adopt resolution 0826, a resolution affirming the Tualatin Valley Water District's commitment to customer data privacy. Are there any questions I can answer?
This is a comment, not a question. First, thank you and bravo to TVWD for taking on this task. It is definitely one of the reasons that I'm proud to be associated with TVWD. So thank you.
Appreciate your support, and this is important to the organization, our values. So I really appreciate that comment.
Discussion, I will ask, is there a motion to adopt resolution 0826 in a second?
This is, this is Jim Doan, so moved.
It's Todd Sanders, I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I will now close the regular session and the board will convene an executive session. Will the district recorder please read the executive session script?
Certainly. An executive session of the board is called under ORS 192.6602H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection.
As soon as Elliot looks this way, we are officially adjourned.